the light balance on my laptop suck so hard? Why? Why? Just so sucky. All right, let's get over here and go live on, let's start. Let's do that. As per usual, I've got my two devices going like a super professional. Got them both going there. Oh, laptop. So if you're watching me on Facebook, would you let me know whether you can hear me or not? Because I've got my mic hooked up and it says that everything is fine, but I don't know. I don't trust it. I don't trust it. Don't trust it. So I don't know. If you're over there on Facebook and I'm just like, oh, you can hear me. Yay, Jen. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, do not trust it. I have trust issues with this mic because it hasn't been working for so long. Turns out I had to reinstall, and like every time it unplugs, I have to reinstall. It's so annoying. Technology has been kicking my ass. Hi, friends. It's Friday, and also my white balance is going to be just like incredibly annoyingly bad because I'm over here and I just decided not to set up over there. Let's see, maybe if I do this the whole time. No? See? Maybe. We'll see. Whatever. I know. You know what? By the end of first quarter, I am going to have an actual office. Like, I'm going to have like everything set up fancy with like my lights on the ceiling and all that stuff. It's going to be like amazeballs. And then I'm going to have nice, clean, balanced lighting. So my laptop doesn't, my laptop isn't annoyed. It's also, it's hibernation season. I don't know if anybody knew that. I'm just declaring that right now, which is why I did put on some lipstick for y'all. You're welcome. Got some lipstick on, but everything else is just like, this is my take on the messy bun. It's not even a full bun. You are welcome. I've got like a pencil chunked through the back of my head right now, just holding this holding this whole mess together. I don't know if you can see that fabulousness, but you're welcome. You're welcome. My hairdresser. So proud right now. So proud. Really, really so proud. See, I didn't even get all the hairs in the bun. It's in the bun. All right. I'm going to stop vamping. Not vamping. Just like creating some love. Okay. I'm going to get in real close. Let's talk. Let's do some live office hour, shall we? Let's do it. It's Friday morning on the 10th of December. Whew, guys, we're like 2 weeks away from Christmas. Friends, we are 2 weeks away from Christmas. That's right. Let that sink in a little bit. Okay. 2 weeks away from Christmas. It's fine. And, hey, so, I don't know what's going on over there on Instagram. Might be okay. Who knows? I'm ignoring them. Hey, so today, my name is Dr. Shannon Coates. And today, so I've been in a, So one of the things that I love to do is to take continuing education classes and courses, especially from folks, where the continuing education is, it's really built on like having, what can I say? It's like super fast, super intense, tons of information. I love that. So I am doing Demystifying the Voice right now. It's like over 3 Saturdays in December. Who wants to be in a conference on a Saturday in December? Not me, but here I am. It's fine. It's fine. Who wants to be at a conference on a Saturday? I don't want to be. Anyway, it's fine. But it's like Johann Sundberg, who, can learn so many things. Dr. Brian Gill, of course, oh golly, I should have written the names down, and I did not. But anyway, nice, right? Like, so good. It's such a great course. And I was saying to one of my colleagues, like, the information that Johann Sundberg, puts out in like 45 minutes, I cover in 3 hours in like an undergraduate voice pen class, for example, or in in another class, or in the Vocal Instrument 101, which, by the way, is on sale because it's December and it's the 3rd anniversary, just FYI. So that information, I am used to disseminating that information and these concepts. I'm used to disseminating that information in a more taking a little bit more time and really rolling out the concepts because of who I'm generally working with, and really making sure we're all on the same page. We get these fundamentals really nice and strong, and strong fundamentals. Kill me. Okay. Voice science jokes, the best, right? The best. And part of being in that, part of the reason that I like to do that and I like to get this information is because that's what I do. I disseminate information, and I try to create spaces for learning and for deeper learning, and for voice teachers especially. And so I like to see how other people are doing it and how other people are talking about it. And I also like to just see what's new, right? What's the new science? And also, I love to learn in a lecture kind of situation. So that's my fave. I'd rather do that than read Sundberg's book. Although I do have his book, and I have read one of his books, and I have read quite a lot of it. I've never read it cover to cover. That's not my thing. Anyway, and so one of the things that kind of came to me when I was in the course, and that was kind of like rolling around in my brain, and also when I've been reading some other texts and things like that. And one of the things that kind of came to me was just the fact that, who we're listening to at a specific time really affects how we see the voice and how we work with the students that we're working with. And so I'm calling this, if I have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And of course, if I have a screwdriver, everything looks like a screw. And then the analogy goes flat because I'm not really sure what other tools to call on. If I have a wrench, everything looks like a nut and a bolt. Is that what wrenches do? I don't even know. Whatever. Right? So whatever the tool, this specific tool is that I happen to have in my hand, or that I happen to be thinking about at the time, that will often get translated into the way that I work with a student in front of me. So for example, some examples, and some of the things that I have personally, some of the tools that I have personally used, which means that I see the student in front of me through that lens, are, for example, so if you're doing some body work, like say you're working with Robert Sussuma or Sarah Whitten, or you're working with Alison Jane Taylor at SenseAble Singing, if you're working with some of those folks, then everything then that you see in the student, you're going to relate back to body work, right? You're going to be like, okay, so we need to work on this aspect of releasing in the body, and we need to work on this part of the body. Like, it's going to start to filter through because that's the main tool in your hand right now. Some other folks, if you've recently read Miller or Fennard or Dosher, or you've read one of those textbooks that has like all of this really intense technical information or anatomy and physiology in it, you may be looking really diagnosticianally. Is that a word? Sure, let's use that word. But you may be looking with like super diagnostically. Sure, let's go with that word too. At the student in front of you, right? You may lose sight of the student as a whole or lose sight of some other parts, but you are looking super, diagnostically. Yes. Say you're working with, or say you're on a sort of registration or performance track, then everything looks like registration issues when you're working with a student, right? Everything looks like, oh, I just need to shape that vowel, or I need to change how I transition through that one area, or I need to change, which formant I'm tracking, or which harmonic the formant is tracking. Like, everything comes back to like, ooh, how am I shaping in order to create registration and resonance? If you say are working with, I'm just listing up a whole bunch of fabulous people here, but say if you have just come from a seminar with Titsa, you might then think that SOVTs are the answer to every single thing that you're working on, which that might be the way that you come through, right? So again, all of the tools that are in your hands. Some of the other things, if you have worked with me recently, you might, I know lots of folks come back and say, oh yeah, when I changed my language around this, or when I changed my teaching style and did these kind of teaching rather than, I use these kinds of directives rather than these kind of directives, it really changed everything. So you're thinking about like teaching style, and you're thinking about how you use language and how you communicate, and so that's the lens through which you teach everybody in front of you. Say you've just done something with Heidi Moss. This happens to me all the time. I do something with Heidi Moss, and then I'm like, oh yeah, everything I do now can be like, or all of the students who I work with, I want to work with doing some mimicry and like hacking the brain, not hacking the brain, but understanding how the brain works and how learning works. Everything I do with that student now in front of me is going to be related back to this latest tool that I have in my hand. I had a couple other ones here too. Oh, Cheryl Porter. So say you've been watching Cheryl Porter videos, which do it. And Cheryl Porter does like just so much fun and tons of call and response. So like maybe that then is everything that you do with your students becomes like embodied call and response, and everybody's having super fun, right? And so that's how I'm working. Everything I see in the student becomes this sort of call and response, is the answer, or is going to be the thing that's going to help to work with that student. So all of these things, all of these tools, and so maybe you've been reading the book Range recently, and so now you're thinking about desirable difficulties. And so now you're thinking about, how do I put desirable difficulties in front of each student that I teach in order to make, I'm so sorry about this white balance. You get like one thing fixed and then everything, it's fine. So those are some examples, right? So, and just kind of think about where you are in your teaching right now, sort of philosophically. What are the tools that you have that are coloring the lens through which you see your students and through which you are working with your students? So what are those tools that are in your hands? We only have two hands, right? So I'm just going to take this analogy all the way home, just FYI, it's coming all the way. So, and what I wanted to say is that, that's fine. It's all good. If you're working from you're using one specific tool 24 hours with every single student that you work with, that's fine. I just want to say, hey, it's totally fine. You know why? Because there are 1,000 ways into the voice. There are 1,000 ways into the voice. As many ways as you can think are all of the ways that you can, as many teachers as there are out there, are all of the ways that we can get into the voice. Are there some things that are more effective than others? Are there some tools that are more effective than others? Of course there are. But that's not to say that everybody isn't doing fine, right? So we're all, it's fine. If you've got this one tool or maybe two tools that you're working with, and so like everything you see is a hammer or a screw, that's fine. It's totally fine. With three caveats. Three caveats. One caveat is to recognize. The one caveat is to recognize and to be cognizant of the fact that the thing that I have, the tool that I have in my hand, is going to affect my perception of what is going to work for the students in my studio, right? So that's the one caveat. Recognize it. And when you recognize that, and you say, oh, I actually have this one tool that I really love and that I'm using right now, or maybe these two tools that I really love and I'm using with all of my students right now, or I tend to always see the student through body mapping and body movement. I tend to be able to, work with students through body movement, or I tend to work through registration, or I tend to work through through call and response, or I tend to work, whatever it is. Recognize it, because and as soon as we recognize it, it doesn't then necessarily have the power to blind us. Blind might not be the right way to put this. It doesn't necessarily have the power then to take over and be the only tool and be the one ring to rule them all, right? It doesn't have the power over us then if I recognize it and I say, oh, yeah, I love this tool. I use it all the time. It's very useful for me and it's working. And so down the road has a different tool and seems to be working for them too. And that's fine. So that leads me to the second caveat, which is don't hold on to that tool too strongly, hardly, deeply, graspfully. You're welcome for all of these words that don't work, but don't hold on too hard to that tool. So that's the second thing, is to be open, and this is part of what we've talked about before, what I've talked about before. Be really open about the fact that I've got this one tool right now, and that at any time I could firmly, thank you, Young's coming back, I could release this tool and I could take on another tool. I am open to all of the modalities that are available and out there, right? So the first thing is going to recognize that I am teaching through a limited perspective, and that's okay. And then the second thing is to be open, allow other tools to be added and replaced and added again without being mad or frustrated, or without, when I recognize that there's another tool out there, another perspective, or a deeper way of looking at the voice, or another way of understanding resonance, blah, 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 I'm not going to be frustrated or upset or sad, maybe I didn't do right by my students before. No, I'm just going to be like, oh, cool, that's an upgrade on my hammer. Is there such a thing as an upgrade on a hammer? I do not know. Maybe it's in your new favorite color. Maybe that's the upgrade. But that's an upgrade, or that's a new tool, or a tool that I can add to my toolbox, or maybe even replace the current tool I'm working with, right? So it becomes this openness and the willingness to recognize that there are lots of other tools in the universe, lots of other perspectives and ways into the voice. And then the third thing is to be as intentional as you can in terms of your energy, your finances, your brain power, your ability to get places and all that stuff. Be as intentional as you can about learning about other tools and other perspectives and other ways of thinking about how we access the voice, and other ways of teaching and other ways of doing this thing. Be as intentional as you can about finding other voices and other experiences and kinds of research that are outside of your own and outside of your circle, so that you can then not be stuck with just one tool for the rest of your life, right? We don't want to be stuck with just one tool. I mean, it might be the best tool on the planet, but I'm sure you can upgrade. I'm sure. I don't think any of us have the best tool on the planet yet, right? I think we all have some terrific tools that are working well for us, and then we can share alike, right? We can all transition, have another tool, build on the tool that I already had. Ooh, I'm taking this analogy all the way home. So that's something to consider over the weekend, and just as you're going into a new week of teaching and considering over the weekend, just something to consider. Recognize what the specific perspective is that you are teaching from right now, what it happens to be. What is the main one that kind of comes up a lot? I know that as much as I am working always toward working, student-led, and where do we want to go, and what's the next thing for the student, Of course, it's always going to be through the perspective of whatever the tool is that I happen to have in my hand. And that's fine. So think about that. Be intentional about recognizing that tool. And then be intentional about allowing yourself to be open to other tools. And then be intentional about finding some other tools and finding some other ways of doing things. Some of the folks that I mentioned earlier in this live may be folks to check out if you haven't already. These are all folks who kind of have a slightly different perspective on things. Maribeth Bunch, Dame, Maribeth Dame, Maribeth Bunch, Maribeth Dame. I can't remember which one is the name that she went by in the end. So there you go. I'll do a little list and taggy of all the people, of as many of the people anyway that I mentioned as I can. Is maybe someone to look into as well if you haven't before. That's like holistic and a little bit more spiritually based, but along with with brain physiology. There's lots of folks who are working with a sort of like trauma-informed teaching and inclusivity-informed teaching. And so if you've got some trauma training, or that's kind of in your, filtering through, that will change your language. That will change the way you approach problems in the studio, right? That will change the way that you approach students. So all of these things are great tools, and none of them are, none of them are wrong, and it's fine. It's fine to have one tool at a time, or two at a time. It's fine. You're allowed. So have a little bit of permission from me if you need it, and a little bit of consideration, a little bit of thinking. Whoa, hi there. just about threw my mouse off the floor there. On the floor, threw my mouse on the floor. All right. Terrific. Have a great weekend. I hope that if you're in hibernation spirit as I am right now, as you can tell from all the bundling, I hope that you have a terrific hibernating season. I will see you on Monday. Take good care. And, better end here